Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, friends. How are you today? I hope this video podcast finds you in good health and secure. If not, then let's look to build up your practice and strengthen your life, yes? All right. Thank you once again, as I've gotten in the habit of doing, not waiting till the end of the video to let you know how much I admire, appreciate, and greatly encouraged by your continued practice, your participation in these videos, liking, subscribing, helping us to make this study, this information, this correct practice of Lotus Sutra Buddhism available to as many people, to make it easy to find for them so that they can strengthen their practice and for ourselves, yeah? We are in the beginnings of the Entering the Gate of Non-Dualism chapter, and we are talking about, and the way this is written, each bodhisattva is discussing different aspects, is that the end? No, it continues. Okay. Of the teachings. Early teachings, middle teachings, the different periods of the teachings up until this Vimalakirti, earlier Mahayana. It's in the latter half, I would say, of Mahayana scholarship. It's not the earliest Mahayana text, but it's certainly not the last, the ultimate of the Lotus Sutra. But it's in there with some others that are in that middle ground of talking about the same things, but from the perspective, I think we've already covered 7 consciousnesses in this sutra. As you know, there are 9, and again, I refer you to go and maybe if I remember, I'll put a link to the most recent video I did, that talk on the 9 consciousnesses. It has some illustration in it, help you conceive of the idea of these multiple consciousnesses, yeah? So now we're going to continue. Next is Bodhisattva direct seeing. And again, these naming conventions are different aspects of perception, experience, consciousnesses. So this is a Bodhisattva direct seeing. So obviously about visual perception and the mind and the way it uses identification this particular way, yes? The exhaustible and the inexhaustible form a dualism. Okay, what do you mean? But whether dharmas are in the end exhaustible or inexhaustible, they are all without the marks of exhaustibility. And if we are without the marks of exhaustibility, they are empty. And if they are empty, they are without the marks either of exhaustibility or inexhaustibility. If one enters this realm of understanding, one might thereby enter the gate of non-dualism. Typo. Okay, this is a little bit more profound, but it's okay. It's really following in the line of everything we've read so far. It's just a little bit more intricate, right? And notice the use of the word realm. And I will remind you, again, this is repetition, but from very many points of view, to make the overall point that we're constantly, moment to moment, navigating through clouds of realms that have tendencies and conditions. Some of those tendencies and conditions are in the world or realm of hell. But we're never in that realm alone, because all the realms interpenetrate. Yeah? So you can be in the hell of dying for a cheeseburger and eating 50 cheeseburgers and not feeling like you've eaten enough, the world of hunger. And your whole chase after that is the world of animality. And actually, the moment you have that perfect bite could be the Buddha, the Bodhisattva, the learning, the realization of the burger. The realms are all interpenetrating. The purpose of identifying each realm is to identify identification, the myriad potentials of states of mind, realms of experience, realms of perception, right? Whether something you witness or perceive in your life horrifies you, excites you, is a distraction or not, or something doesn't distract you, something doesn't grab your attention. This whole mechanism of identifying with moment to moment manifestations of potential is very telling as to how the mind seizes upon things and then makes judgment based on that seizing, and how that judgment ends up impacting our state of being, whether we're enjoying life or whether we're afraid of life or concerned about hanging on to or getting rid of or running away from or running toward. All of that mix of anxieties is because of this mechanism of perception, and more to the point, how we perceive. Not just that scares me. Yeah, that's a perception and it scares you. But how did that perception manifest fear from that stimuli? How is it that that stimuli, which is only stimuli by virtue of your perception of it, because somebody else doesn't even acknowledge it, and somebody else goes neurotic over it, why are there differences? What is going on in that perception, and thereby precipitating all of these various anxieties you individually experience in your life? This is the minutia of Buddhism, yeah? But all of it isn't about becoming a neuroscientist. It's about witnessing how we construct our samsaric experience. And the option being, the Buddhist option being, that if you can train your mind to experience all of it as within the sphere of experience of instantiations, moment to moment, then the stimuli is to see equanimity rather than differentiation. And when you see equanimity as opposed to differentiation, then the differentiation is attachment. It's possession or revulsion. It's that mechanism. And when everything's equal, then this subsides. This possession, repulsion, gain, loss, it doesn't belong. Because if everything's equal along with yourself, then it's all about this moment's existence and the poetics of that, which is freed or liberated or emancipated from this other process of gain and loss, possessing, attraction, entanglements. That's the illusion, and that's earth, and that's samsara, and that's okay. But it's okay if your ultimate perception and experience of it is equanimous. Then you cease to be pulled and pushed. You just are. So that's what this is, taking this apart. This is the idea of entering the gate of non-dualism. It's really exiting the gate of dualism, however you want to say it. It's a lot of words trying to describe this release, identifying an aspect of the dualistic nature of life, the perception of the dualism, versus ebbing away of the perception of dualism and replacing it with a different perception. Yeah? The Bodhisattva Universal Guardian said, I and not I form a dualism, because that's a perception of there is I and there is not I. But knowing what not I is difficult, because it rests on the fulcrum of identification. So it's easy to say that with words, but much more difficult to deeply perceive it, yes? But when one cannot grasp even I, how can one grasp not I? One who has seen into the true nature of I will no longer give rise to these two concepts, and in this way enter the gate of non-dualism. So you've heard this said in many ways. What is I? I is the fulcrum, the pinnacle of identification. When you arrive at an I, you do so by virtue of what I am not. That is the primary separation, non-equanimous attachment itself, its ego, its I. It's this idea of an independent, constantly abiding I. And just saying that, I know, even though we've talked about this a whole bunch, every time you hear it, you go, I'm here. How can you say I'm not? Well, yeah, you're here. But what is you? Who is hearing this? Who is seeing this? Well, I am. Your construct of I is what we're discussing. How did you construct this elaborate idea of a self? Because logically, you know that a week from now, you're not this self. Well, pretty much. I change all the time, but I mean, I'm still me. Wow, what a word salad that is. Truly, if you understand that this physicality is manifested moment to moment, it's not a constantly abiding thing. It's constantly manifesting a potential, this freight train of karma. If with every moment, it changes a little. Whether it's stem cells or maybe it's a chain in your DNA that suddenly breaks, or some virus or enters you and alters something at a molecular level or submolecular level. Radiation. It's happening all the time, moment to moment, physically, and moment to moment, 3,000 realms in every single thought moment, your mind is shifting. Now, as human beings, we sit back in the lazy boy luxury recliner of life, and we just connect these moments to give ourselves the impression of permanence, of lasting things. But really, when you think of it deeply, that's an illusion. It's a comfortable illusion. It's a difficult one to leave. But that illusion is what creates all our anxieties. You hear things like, people don't like change. Well, sorry. Life is change. You may perceive yourself not changing, even being stubbornly adhering to the way things are. It's laughable. Sorry, don't mean to insult anyone, but that's laughable. It's simply not the case. All of that is invented. It's a manufactured reality. It's like saying with clear eyes, I'm not aging another moment. I'm going to be 23 and a half for centuries. Or even more laughable, I'm going to be 23 and a half till I die. Okay, forget all the conundrums in that statement. Picturing a 23 and a half year old dying of old age in a coffin. Come on. We could say things like that because our brains and our minds are wonderfully abstract, and we're constantly taught by marketing, by religion, by cultures, by social groups to buy into this magical thinking. We can make statements that are completely unreasonable, irrational. But more and more, since society, the age of defilements, degeneration, runs on that what can you call it? Delusions is the only, yeah. After a time, we don't even recognize the delusion as being delusion. We just say whatever we want and suddenly it's so. Right? We live in the age of fake news and alternative facts. Oh, man. Just saying that it bends the mind. But we're so accustomed to it. We go, okay, I bent my mind. Here I am. Right? And what is Buddhism in contrast? Buddhism is a return to reason and rational thinking. It's observational science. It's like really look at the situation, peer upon it deeply. And the truth doesn't matter what words you throw all around it. The truth is the truth. You can call it strawberry milkshake, spaghetti monster pie running around the earth, the flat earth, whatever. You can put whatever words to it you want. But ultimately, it's obvious. And this is no different than what we do when we chant Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Bing! Oh, right. You can dance around creating illusions and constructs all day long. That doesn't make them real. Oh, but Sifu, you can experience them as real. You can live in your delusions. Yeah. You can come up with endless examples. Much easier to see in others than in ourselves, of course. But that's what this is about. Get rid of the excess language, the magical thinking, and just be accurate, be reasonable, be rational. Also meaning know what you don't know and be okay with that. You don't know everything. Not in samsara, because what you know in samsara is all constructed. What you know with Buddha wisdom, the Buddha experience, that's actual. And here's the catch. That actual, reasonable, rational mind only exists in that moment, in that moment, in that moment, in that moment. It doesn't have a history. It's a process, and it's happening now, 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 now. Like a stream of realization. Because if it had previous nows, then it wouldn't be Buddha. Because it'd be dragging the past along with it. Attachment. This is what they mean when they say Buddha-ness is empty. The Dharma is empty. Because the Dharma is a witness, moment to moment to moment to moment, not a thing. It's a condition of mind. It's a thought moment with all potential available to it to manifest. And then it leaves to go to the next moment and the next moment. So in that context, who is I? How many I's have I been for the duration of this video? The Bodhisattva Lightning God said, enlightenment and ignorance form a dualism. Being rational and witnessing every moment, or living in the constructs of magical thinking, seem like a dualism, don't they? Of course, as we go on with Mahayana and to the Lotus Sutra, we learn that even in our derisions and our delights of magical thinking, there is Buddha. We know this. So it really isn't a dualism. It is a flawed experience. It is ignorance. It is behavior without recognition, reason, or rational thinking. Is that a dualism? It's irresponsible. It's foolishness. Yeah. But the true nature of ignorance is none other than enlightenment. Ta-da! And enlightenment cannot be seized, but is apart from all enumerations. Gosh, isn't that what I was just talking about? One dwells in the center, in the equality without dualism, and in this way enters the gate of non-dualism. Living in the full focus of moments. Namo myo renge-kyo, namo myo renge-kyo, namo myo. And I'm not saying a moment lasts as long as it takes for you to say namo myo renge-kyo. What I'm saying is adjusting your mind to being in the moment of realizing everything in this moment detaches us from the constructions that we like to hold on to. So in this verbiage, saying enlightenment cannot be seized because it isn't a thing. One dwells in the center, in other words, not positive, negative, not this or that, but being. In the equality without dualism, right? And in this way enters the gate of non-dualism. So the gate of non-dualism is really Gohanzen is what we're talking about. It's that way in to the mind of clear thinking. The Bodhisattva Joyful Seeing said, form and the emptiness of form constitute dualism. What an interesting construct of words. It didn't say form and not form, or form and emptiness. He said form and the emptiness of form constitute a dualism. We may need to take that apart further. So let's see how he goes on. But form is none other than emptiness. Okay. This is toying with the idea of perception, yeah? Construction. Who is constructing and what is construction? Emptiness does not represent the extinction of form. The form happens from a desire to possess. And so the manifestation of energies becomes thingified because we want to have it. Form is itself empty by nature because it's an apparition. It's a momentary instantiation. Although we connect those moments and make it a real thing, it simply isn't. It's an apparition. It's a construction. Well, I can sit in this apparition of chair. Yes, you can. That's the nature of the energies assembling into atoms and molecules and staying in a certain condition, tendencies and conditions. But at some point, this chair won't hold me up. I know that's inevitable. But for now, you see, Buddhism is really tearing up at this fabric of invention, contrivance, construction, but it never denies that it's going on. It's just saying, understand, with the light on in the attic, what's actually happening. Actually, that's much more amazing. And now we're going to hit on, this is getting to the really nitty-gritty of Buddhism here. Form is itself empty by nature. Okay. In the same way, perception, conception, volition, will, energy towards something, desire, and consciousness, writ large, the umbrella, consciousnesses, and the emptiness of consciousness constitute dualism. All of our senses, our consciousnesses, sight, hearing, taste, smell, feeling, all of it is in this state of duality all the time, manifesting itself as a consciousness, and in order to perceive that consciousness, hunts for an object to seize upon, to experience that consciousness. That is the core mechanism of attachment. And if you reach out and grab something, seize upon it, is it not in that moment a belonging, a possession, an identification? If it's not identification, why do you call it chair? Which is redundant, because you've already seized upon it. Now you need to call it chair so that you can share what you've seized upon. It's not the same chair that she feels or sees, if she sees it at all. But we use these terms, again, to connect all these dots and permanentize our experience. And then we share it. It's the economy, the mental economy of samsara. And it's okay. All Shakyamuni is saying is suffering of any sort derives from that process. So live in it. Many do. This is the human condition. But if you want to alleviate, relieve yourself, emancipate yourself, because it at points is overwhelming, there is a way to do that. But you need to change your mind. You need to find in your mind a perceptive experience of reality that disconnects you from that mechanism so that you can liberate yourself from that mechanism of seizing and attaching and possessing and losing. And if you identify everything in its true state, moment to moment, of instantiating, enduring, and decaying, every moment, birth, death, just as you yourself are, and others, everything, the universe. The only thing that differentiates anything is a time scale, which is again a samsaric perception. But if you want liberation from all of that chaos of feelings and anxieties and all, you can do it. Your mind's natural state is uninstantiated. But consciousness is none other than emptiness. Emptiness does not represent the extinction of consciousness. Consciousness is itself empty by nature. Dwelling in the midst of these concepts and understanding them thoroughly, one may in this way enter the gate of non-dualism. Once again, I remind you, this is not the Lotus Sutra. These are mental exercises to get students of Buddhism to understand what actually is required of the mind in order to liberate itself from dualism, attachment, the desire, the object of desire, the manifestation of a relationship there precipitates suffering. And so if you want to end something, it's in the Four Noble Truths. If you want to seize this craving action, then you need to stop the formations of those actions. And here's the way you do that. You shift your mind. Now, this has gone well beyond the Eightfold Noble Path. That's just a way to live so that you can begin to challenge your perception of the world. But in the later periods, after Hinayana, after Agama, into the Mahayana, this idea that this is all happening in the mind really comes to the fore later in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, right? And then we end up at the Lotus Sutra, which, okay, now that you know all this, it's almost like, okay, now you know too much. But all of this enumeration we're going through right now is solely so that when you get to self-enlightenment, when you get to the Lotus Sutra, you now understand, with the help of great scholars like Tendai, Dengyo, Miaolo, and certainly Nichiren, that by simply invoking this self-realizing teaching, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we do all of this in an instant. It just happens because it's already there. It just needs to be called upon. People at this stage weren't ready to do that because they didn't really understand what it meant to do that. Are those magic words? No, no, no. I'm teaching you for 40 some odd years here the mechanism that needs to be challenged, reevaluated, adjusted, and invoked. So that by the time he gets to the Lotus Sutra and it's Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, this method of self-enlightenment, you understand the scholarship, the analysis that you're instantiating. Now you have an appreciation for the grandeur of that moment. It's not magical. It's a switch you're throwing to do all of this. Now it's really meaningful. And that's why we study. This is why Shakyamuni said you have to study it all. Because if you don't, you'll miss it. If you don't, it'll just be stories. If you don't, then you won't understand what you're doing when you're manifesting Buddha. The enormity of the task and the simplicity of invoking it. But this is the profundity of Buddhism. The Bodhisattva Wonderful Will said, the eye and the object it observes constitute dualism. Right? We were just talking about that. The object of our gaze. We wouldn't perceive a gaze had we not had an object to focus it on. And when we focus on the object of our gaze, we understand gazing. And we have a tremendous incentive, desire, to continue experiencing that gaze. We just shift the focus. Why do you think Nichiren naturally came up with this mandala? Let's use that gaze and let's focus it on enlightenment. It's a natural process of human mind, human existence, to focus our gaze to instantiate a reality. So let's focus our gaze on the ultimate teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha to instantiate what? The ultimate Dharma, enlightenment, Buddha-ness. Brilliant. Duh. Wonderful Will. Perfect name for this bodhisattva. But if one understands the nature of the I, or more to the point, I consciousness, then with regard to objects, one will be without greed. No need to possess the object. The consciousness is the bottom line here. There's no object that needs to be possessed. Without anger, manipulation, having, you don't have, stay away from mine, anger, and without stupidity, the foolishness, the stupidity of thinking that by gazing upon it, I've made it real. It's a moment-to-moment perception. This is called tranquil extinction, that understanding of that process. Similarly, the ear and sounds, nose and smells, tongue and taste, the body and touch, and the mind and phenomena constitute dualisms. Well, this is what we've been talking all about, right? All along. Say it. But if one understands the nature of the mind, then with regard to phenomena, one will be without greed, without anger, and without stupidity. This is called tranquil extinction. Not death, extinction. Extinction of the attachments to the formations, ceasing the formations, back to the Four Noble Truths. Liberation, emancipation. How many words can we construct about this mental shift, this perceptive paradigm shift, yes? dwelling at rest in its midst, see, it's not gone, one may thereby enter the gate of non-dualism. So we're hammering on this point with deeper and deeper complexity, aren't we? The Bodhisattva inexhaustible will, because desire is a primary theme here, yeah? Says, almsgiving and applying the merits gained thereby to acquire comprehensive wisdom constitute a dualism. So if you're hoping to give gifts or support in order to gain something, that's a dualism. But the nature of almsgiving is none other than applying of merits to acquire comprehensive wisdom. Similarly, keeping of the precepts, forbearance, assiduousness, meditation, and wisdom form dualisms in contrast to the applying of merit to acquire comprehensive wisdom, etc. But the nature of wisdom is none other than applying of merits to acquire comprehensive wisdom. By entering into an understanding of the singleness of form that all these share, one may thus enter the gate of dualism. What the hell did he just say? As bodhisattvas, we are in samsara. And our conduct, attitude and intent, remember? Our conduct in our environment is a mission. Right away, that's a duality, right? But if we understand that that mission to conduct ourselves in an influential way, which we always do, but being conscious of our influence, we can behave in certain ways that we can observe, others can observe as meritorious, as generous, as bodhisattva behavior, assisting others in a life-affirming way. All of this behavior is done in service to enlightenment. So, yeah, it's a dualism. But when we understand that our acts in that regard and achieving the objective of those acts, Buddha-ness, are not actually dual. That those actions, those attitudes and intent are the very manifestation of Buddha-ness through a Bodhi coursing as bodhisattva, samsaric existence, that itself in that way manifests Buddha-ness. Then we break down that duality and we enter the gate of the Buddha way. That's quite profound. The Bodhisattva deep wisdom. He says, this emptiness, this is formlessness. This is non-action. To speak in this manner is dualistic, as I was just pointing out. Emptiness is none other than formlessness. Formlessness is none other than non-action. If something is empty, formless, non-acting, then it is without mind, will, or consciousness. This single doctrine of emancipation is the same as the threefold doctrine of emancipation regarding emptiness, formlessness, and non-action. In this way, one enters the gate of non-dualism. Now, that's a little harder to follow, but it's restating the same thing. Basically saying, if we live our lives in the knowledge that everything is equal, equanimity, that everything is the process, just like the mind. It's not a thing. It's a process. And that process is life. Not the thingness, though it exists. That's just the accoutrement of life. They're mirrors that show us our potential in manifestations. The Bodhisattva Tranquil Roots said, to speak of the Buddha, the law, and the assembly is dualistic. The Buddha is none other than the law, and the law is none other than the assembly. These three treasures are all uncreated in form, like the empty sky, and all dharmas are the same. One who can act in accordance with this understanding may thereby enter the gate of non-dualism. It's another way of saying exactly what I just said. Go away. Right? So, Buddha is not other. The law of life, the process, if you want to replace that for the word law, the process of life is not this or that or you or me or even the universe. The process is the action imposed on energy, karma. So that's all it is. That process doesn't change. It just continues processing. What we make of it with a mind is samsara. The three treasures are like uncreated in form, because what we're talking about, Buddha, Buddha-ness, the law, and you and me and the environment and the universe, is all for the energies of formation. What that produces moment to moment is like the wake behind a boat. It's not important. It's of the same source. It's just like a rainbow in the rain. You can't grab the rainbow. It manifests because of all the other tendencies and conditions around what produces it. So, if you can act, attitude and intent, with the knowledge, with the understanding, with the perception that what we're experiencing isn't sitting on a chair in a cocoon surrounded by computers, but what we're experiencing is this momentum of karma. All of this stuff is like, it's just wallpaper. It really exists and we use it, but it's not possessed. It's not possessible. It's just, if you want to go swimming, you need water. But the swimming is itself an experience. In order to experience swimming, we need a body, we need breathing, we need water, we blah, 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 blah. But all of that blah, blah, blah isn't swimming. Swimming is the experience. Buddha is like that. The Bodhisattva mind, unobstructed, said, the body and the body extinguished constitute a dualism. Because if you're worried about the conditions of a body, you've made it permanent. But the body is none other than the body extinguished. It's already gone. Moment, 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 moment. Why? Because one who sees into the true form of the body does not give rise to thoughts of seeing the body or seeing the extinction of the body. because the body is a moment-to-moment manifestation of karma, energy. The body and the extinction of the body are not two things, not a distinction to be made. One who rests in this understanding, neither alarmed nor fearful, may in this way enter the gate of non-dualism. You see, it's interesting, the repetition, because we can talk all day long about this idea, and in the very next moment, oh yeah, but how does that fit? It's like we can't stay in that moment of realization. Everything becomes a new problem to solve. If you want to know the nature of attachment, that's it. You're witnessing it as you're considering different things, yeah? The Bodhisattva Superior Goodness said, to speak of the activities of the body, mouth, mind, it's dualistic. These three activities are all marked by the aspect of non-action. The mind is providing the perception of action. If the body is marked by non-action, then the mouth must be marked by non-action. And if the mouth is marked by non-action, then the mind must be marked by non-action. And since these three activities are marked by non-action, then all dharmas must be marked by non-action. You see, we're whittling right back to the same point. Quietude. The monkey mind silenced, or rather pushed off in its proper place, not obsessing and controlling the Buddha mind. Anyone have kids? When you get a moment to yourself? Yeah? One who can go along with this wisdom of non-action may in this way enter the gate of non-dualism. Right? The Bodhisattva Merit Field said, to speak of meritorious deeds, blameful deeds, deeds that call forth no retribution, all of that is dualistic. What we're doing right now is dualistic. The true nature of all three kinds of deeds is empty. And if it is empty, then there is no meritorious deeds, no blameful deeds, no deeds that call forth no retribution. One who does not rouse any thought of distinctions with regard to these three types of deeds may thereby enter the gate of non-dualism. Now, it's another page and a half. Yeah, let's go ahead and finish this. The Bodhisattva flower garland said, from the concept of self rises the concept of two things. Because if there's a self, then there's a not self, other. Oh, self and other. Which creates a dualism. Duh. But one who sees into the true form of the self will not give rise to the thought of two things. Because the self is constructed just as everything is. So we're really all in the same energetic flow, yes? And if one does not dwell in the thought of two things, then one will be without consciousness, and without anything one is conscious of, and in this way may enter the gate of non-dualism. Now you probably notice we're dealing with language. So don't seize upon these words. Try to understand the concept that's being explored here. Otherwise you'll get lost chasing down words. It won't help. The Bodhisattva Virtue Storehouse said, quote, to suppose that there is some form of object that one can acquire is dualistic. He's saying it in another way, isn't he? But if one realizes that there is nothing to be acquired, then there will be no grasping and no rejecting, possessing, losing, loss, gain. And when there is no grasping and no rejecting, one may in this way enter the gate of non-dualism. The Bodhisattva moon in midair said, darkness and light form a dualism. If there's no darkness and no light, there will be no dualism. Why? It is like entering the meditation that wipes out perception and conception, where there is neither darkness nor light. And the forms of all dharmas are the same as this. If one enters this state and views all with equality, equanimity, one may thereby enter the gate of non-dualism. The Bodhisattva treasure sign said, to yearn for nirvana and not delight in the world constitutes a dualism. Interesting, problematic. I've talked about this many times. Let's see what he says. But if one does not yearn for nirvana and does not loathe the world, there will be no dualism. Why? If there is binding, another word for possession, gain, loss, yeah? If there is binding, entanglement, there will be unbinding. But if there's no binding to begin with, who will seek to be unbound? It won't be a condition created, constructed. But if there's no binding to begin with, who will seek to be unbound? And where there is no binding and unbinding, there will be no yearning and no loathing. And in this way, one may enter the gate of non-dualism. That's a very important statement because we've talked a lot about sects of Buddhism, teachers who've taken Buddhism to mean something that it does not, and they promote the idea of reaching a pure land after one's extinction, death, as though there's another birth and death into another life where you will then, the Buddha land will appear. And the truth of it is, barring the linguistic differences, that the birth and death we should be discussing is moment to moment. And when we chant Namo Myo Renge Kyo, then that moment is enlightenment. That is the Pure Land. So you're technically correct to say that you have multiple birth and death, the cycle, and that you can alter that cycle and that perception of that cycle through enlightenment. Yes. But if you want to call it a lifetime, you've erred. You've lost it. You've gone to religion. Sounds simple, but it's a critical difference. One is Buddhism, one is not. The Bodhisattva Jewel-Crowned King said, the correct way and the erroneous way constitutes a dualism. But one who dwells in the correct way does not make distinctions, saying, this is erroneous or this is correct. By removing oneself from both, one may thereby enter the gate of non-dualism. So reading that after what I just said, you might criticize me, yeah? This points out the problem of linguistics. To understand, to learn, to gain Buddha wisdom is an experiential thing. It's just like in various ways, the questions I get from time to time on which mandala, or what should I be thinking, or on and on and on, name it. There is no thinking. This is why when we set ourselves up with a respectful, protective place to put our mandala, our ultimate object of focus, so that we can train all our senses on one idea, opening that Gohanzen, that Buddha mind. That is an experience. And the only thought required is a focus of the ability of our consciousnesses to all come together in a single point to manifest our ultimate consciousness, which is free of definitions, free of its thoughtlessness in a way, because it's free from the previous, the future, even the now. It is a timeless perception, Buddha-ness. And being timeless liberates that mind from the space, content, identification of lifetime. Because lifetime is a collection of constructions which holds all of our suffering because of our attitudes and various attachments. Yes? This is why my answer tends to be word for word the same thing. You will not know what this means until you get a proper mandala, a proper altar, and you start chanting with resolve. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. And it will happen. You will be conscious of it happening. You may not be able to find words for what it is that just happened, but you will know it's happening. And what's happening is that gate has opened. And you will be experiencing something you had never before been conscious of experiencing. But it's been going on. It's part of what your mind is. It's why your mind is. You just don't know it yet. Bodhisattva delight in the truth. The truth and the not true form a dualism. But one who sees truly cannot even see the true. So how can he see the untrue? Why? Because they cannot be seen by the physical eye. Only the eye of wisdom can see them. But for this eye of wisdom, there is no seeing and no do not seeing. In this way, one may enter the gate of non-dualism, basically substantiating what I just said. If you're looking for Buddha-ness, you won't find it in your eyes. You'll find it in your experience, in your mind. And the way to find it there is through action. Invoke it. What could be simpler? Invoking it, knowing all of this information, though, puts a gravitas to knowing it that's very confidence building, very profound, ominous, important. And so this is why these discussions and discussions like it are so important. It gives our samsaric self a valuation. As dualistic as that is, again, we are samsaric beings. So we have to figure out how to hang on to this perception while we're in samsara. Nothing wrong with that. So when the various bodhisattvas had finished, one by one, giving their explanations, they asked Manjushri, how then does the bodhisattva enter the gate of non-dualism? The simple question that started this. Manjushri replied, well, to my way of thinking, all dharmas are without words, without explanation, without support, without cognition, removed from all questions and answers. In this way, one may enter the gate of non-dualism. Okay. Is that helpful? Then Manjushri said to Vimalakirti, each of us has given an explanation. Now, sir, it is your turn to speak. How does the Bodhisattva enter the gate of non-dualism? And at that time, Vimalakirti remained silent and did not speak a word. Manjushri sighed and said, excellent, excellent. Not a word, not a syllable. This truly is to enter the gate of non-dualism. When this chapter on entering the gate of non-dualism was preached, 5,000 bodhisattvas in the assembly were all able to enter the gate of non-dualism and to learn to accept the truth of birthlessness. Lots of words. But all of those words saying the same thing, trying to say the same thing, trying to capture that moment of enlightenment, what that experience of enlightenment represents in a samsaric context. Words is hard. Okay, went a little long today, but I think to make this a cohesive idea, to gel in the mind, the inordinate amount of associations we make to thingifying, from our own bodies, heads, eyeballs, feet, to the ground, to the chair we sit on, to everything, is a constructed reality that we embrace without a second thought, because it's the very way we came into this world, through this adherence to self and other. The idea that we can stay in this experience of samsara, but mentally understand real equanimity at a subnuclear realization of energy, this glow that we all represent, everything represents. The mechanisms of hanging on to, searching, or letting go become irrelevant. They become a function of the many, many, many manifestations of potential that surround our very existence. And that's fun, lest we get attached emotionally, mentally, requisite of having, craving. If we understand that there's nothing to crave, that everything exists provisionally for our experience, then we stop stressing about it. Little by little, wow, our life relaxes, our mind relaxes, our tension relaxes, and it leaves more room for joy and wonder. And that is the purpose of our lives. Thank you for being here. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for your support. Patrons, you're amazing, whether it's through Patreon or through PayPal directly. You're so critical to the ability for me to keep doing this stuff. I only want to get better, and I have you guys to appreciate for that. So thank you. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.